morning to you. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning. Won't you share with a friend or two? Good morning. Good morning to you. You. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. You. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning to you and many more and many more and many more. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome, welcome, welcome to Daring Dialogues. I'm your host today, Shantae Charles, and I hope that you have been having a great and wonderful day. If you are with me for the first time, I want to let you know that Daring Dialogues comes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Tuesdays and Thursdays, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are making some adjustments as we go, but for I believe right now, until the rest of the season is over, that is going to be our schedule. If there are any changes, I will try to let you all know at least 24 hours in advance. But in order to know what those changes are, you might have to follow my Facebook page, Black Table Talk. Sometimes YouTube does not allow me to post announcements here for some reason. The last two times I tried, I was not able to post just a photo or an image to explain. So most of the time, as I said, we are here consistently, but if there is a time where you don't see us online, we have probably posted a notice about it on our Facebook page, Black Table Talk. All right, we have a couple of topics to get into today. It is Get Free Friday, Stay Free Friday, and we normally cover health and wealth on Fridays. And today, I'm probably going to just focus in on spiritual health. There was I would say this past week, an incident in the institution of church. And the reason why I say institution of church is because the body of believers at large is so much wider and more numerous than the institutional church. We know this from the research. We know that there are people leaving the church institution, um, but they're not leaving God. They're not leaving Christ. They're not leaving, um, their understanding or their foundation of biblical teachings. However, they are leaving the institutional forms of church. And I believe that this past week, one of the things that occurred gives us an indication of, again, why people are taking the non traditional, non institutional route when it comes to their faith. And I personally do not see that as any less important than people who choose to be a part of the formal institution. But the issue at hand came between an elder, a person who had been promoted to lead a congregation or lead a ministry called the Faith Center down in the Sunrise area in Florida. Sunrise sits right outside of Fort Lauderdale. I'm very familiar with the area. I grew up in South Florida, so I did travel between Dade County and Broward County, so I am familiar with the area. And the two people that this concerns was Bishop Henry Fernandez and Pastor Joel Tud Tudman. And um, he had been serving, he had been vetted according to Bishop Henry Fernandez for the position, and he had been doing this for more than a year. And I think last year he had been finally installed as the next visionary to take the ministry of Bishop Henry Fernandez further. And so there was an announcement made to the congregation that, good morning, that he was no longer going to be in charge. And the announcement was made to the congregation, but it was publicized by live stream. So anytime I want to tell leaders this, anytime you are making an announcement to your body of believers, but you're choosing to publicly live stream it, you are then opening the door for a public conversation about something that is happening within your congregation. I'm going to say that again. When you choose to live stream, you are opening up a public conversation about something that's happening within your congregation. So a better way to maybe do that, because I think he also sent out a letter as well to his members. A better way to have done that may have been to hold a private meeting just for his congregation, because that is mainly who it affected, and those affiliated with his congregation. He could have done a private live stream, a private stream, and had, his network stream in to watch him, talk about it and present it. That probably would have kept a lot of the buzz from occurring outside of his immediate congregation. But since that did not happen, and a lot of people know both of the men. A lot of people, have said, hey, this person is a person of integrity. There's been no stain on their ministry. They have been in ministry for over 30 years. Um, we don't necessarily know all of the ins and outs behind this decision because that bishop chose not to be more specific. He just told his congregation to trust him and to trust his judgment, right? And then on the other hand, there are people who know Pastor Tudman, who has said, hey, this is, he was in Oklahoma before, he was in Texas before. He's always been, a person that, has charisma. He has done a good job leading in other places. He's been patient. He has trusted the process. He's been through the vetting. He's been told that he is the one. So, what is going on and why is this happening? Now, I did go and look at some videos. I looked at a video of them interacting with each other. I looked at a video of Bishop Hernandez sitting down with Pastor Tudman and sort of telling him how he came to the conclusion that he was the person for the job, that he was God sent, and that he knew that it was God's hand on his decision. So then to come back and to essentially say God's hand wasn't on this decision, or we're turning a corner, right? But not being specific about what happened leaves for a lot of room for speculation. Now, the bishop said to the congregation and people, he said, well, we don't want you to speculate, but that's not realistic. That's human nature, especially if you leave room for speculation. You don't come out and say, what is the reason for the change? You don't come out and say that there's something um, that would stop him from being this leader, right? Usually, if there's some kind of moral failing, people would say there was a moral failing. They may not go into any detail, okay? Look at what happened with Tony Evans. Tony Evans stepped down, and it was noted because of what he felt was a moral failing. He didn't go into any detail, but people were clear that it was a moral failing. There was no, wondering, was it or wasn't it, right? And so I want to share with you a writing from Dr. Vanessa Brooks. She is a preeminent scholar on church trauma and religious trauma. She is one of the only people who is doing this kind of work at the research level. And so I do often share her writings because she is doing the work of bringing healing specifically to the Black church, to the Black faith experience and context. And then I want to share with you some other thoughts about this from other leaders and laity. All right. I will be reading their names along with their comments because I want to cite my sources, cite my sources, so you know where I'm getting these comments from. But I want to start with Dr. Vanessa R. Brooks because this is her research and expertise field. Okay. And this is on her page. So I'm reading directly from her page, and she has the image of the two leaders. And it reads the way this removal has been handled forces a deeper question. Is God a God of sides? Beyond this single event, the very framing of God as taking sides has become a pervasive issue across the church, shaping how conflict, power, and belonging are experienced. When leadership transitions are abrupt and unexplained and justified with phrases like God is in control, congregants are left not with clarity but with confusion. They are asked to accept silence as spirituality, to interpret division as divine order, and to pray for him as a substitute for accountability and care. In this case, it is not only the founding pastor, but also the removed leader who has defaulted to this bypassing spiritual response. Both chose the language of spiritual surrender as a way of directing their followers into silence on both sides. From a trauma informed perspective, sudden removals of leadership without explanation can reopen old wounds. Abandonment trauma when a trusted leader disappears overnight or is disappeared overnight. Silencing trauma when questions are discouraged or dismissed, and then you are, maybe demonized if you are asking questions. Betrayal trauma when congregants realize that protection of power took priority over the well being of people. And I'm going to add one more to this. Um, it causes a distrust in the faith process. It causes a distrust in the spiritual leadership and promotion process. Because if you're telling people to trust the process of God, um, if they're in a spiritual space and they know that God is doing something in their life and they feel like God is moving them into a higher perspective, or they're moving into ministry, and you say, well, here is the process by which you can become a minister. Here's the process by which you can become a leader here. Here's the process by which you can volunteer. Then when you do something like this at the highest level of your leadership, you are breaking down the trust that people have in your institutional processes. And that not only affects you and your local congregation, but now that actually affects the body of believers, which is why I feel like more people are speaking out about this, because this does have ramifications beyond, oh, I am deciding to choose another leader, or I'm deciding to retake the reins of ministry here. From a leadership science perspective, she writes, these dynamics collapse the very conditions required for resilience. Amy Edmondson's research on psychological safety demonstrates that people thrive in environments where questions can be asked and doubts expressed without fear. But when both leaders insist that silence is faithfulness and alignment is obedience, safety evaporates. What remains is fear, suspicion, and division, the opposite of what faith communities are called to embody. Theologically, the consequences are just as severe. When God is invoked as partisan in human disputes, with people, making memes or making posters saying, I stand with Bishop Henry Fernandez or I stand with Pastor Joel Tudman, right? When we're seeing this, people taking sides, if God sides with one pastor over another, does God also take sides in families, friendships, failures? Does God abandon those who lose power? For many, the lived conclusion is not theological clarity, but spiritual disillusionment. A trauma informed, human centered approach to leadership would look different. It would acknowledge the grief of change that happens within a people in a congregation. It would communicate with transparency, not just trust me and see. It would offer care for both the leaders and the congregants who have grown to know Pastor Tudman and those who have known Bishop Henry Fernandez. Most of all, it would resist the temptation to conscript God into power struggles, remembering that the role of leadership is to reflect divine care of God and not our human egos. Until churches confront this pervasive God of size theology, they will continue to fracture communities and wound the believers. Because in the end, God is not the author of division, nor the architect of secrecy. God is the source of safety, and any leadership practice that fails to embody that truth does not deserve to be called pastoral. And so I felt like, um, out of all the things that I had been reading about this, I felt like that was um, a very solid assessment from not only a theological perspective, because she also has her MDiv, I believe, but also from a psychological trauma informed perspective, which I feel like people are leaving out in this moment when it comes to um, the harm that has been done by the way that this has been handled. And I want to share with you some of the things that people have been saying that are in leadership and that are in ministry. Levi Harrell writes, this situation with Bishop Joel Tudman is triggering. I've lived this too many times and still have really remained quiet. I will say this, leaders, stop preying, PREYING, on us, using us, lying on us or to us, and then throwing us away once you got what you wanted. That's all for now. Chad E. Brown writes, I don't know Pastor Tudman personally, but I know what church betrayal feels like. It's not easy to deal with. You can't just start another church, as many have urged him to do. Something in you breaks when you are easily discarded. I don't think I will ever build another man's church ever again. If I do, you're turning everything over to me from the gate and making me a chairman of the trustee board. There's no way I could successfully go through that again without somebody getting severely injured. If you've never experienced this kind of injury, please don't speak on it. You have no idea what we go through. We need to pray for the mind and the spirit. Darius A. Jones writes, I recently heard about Pastor Joel Tudman's departure, and while I don't know all the details, my prayers are certainly with him and his family. Nevertheless, situations like this are a reminder of the risk associated with being hired on at a church with no other financial safety net. A church can hire you one day and let you go the next. And when that happens, you can end up losing a lot. I believe it's wise for pastors to have a backup plan or even to remain bivocational so they're not left completely vulnerable with their families if things change suddenly. I'm curious what you all think. In a world where ministry is both a calling and a career, how do we best prepare ourselves to serve faithfully while also protecting our families and futures? Good questions. Alexio Balu says, The look of excitement and optimism on the face of Bishop Henry Fernandez has told every young preacher and pastor, let these ministries die with their founders or be given to their often less capable children as part of their will and inheritance. And I believe he's referring to um, since Pastor Tudman had taken responsibility and lead for the church, I believe they added 1,000 new members within the last year or so, something like that, or the last 30 days. It was something along that nature. But people are hinting at, maybe the outburst of growth or the outburst of growth made Bishop Henry Fernandez perhaps reconsider his decision. Again, we don't know because it has not been expressed. Lioness of Yah writes, I'm just going to say this. Unless Joel Tudman violated someone or was out here with infidelity, I stand with him. Churches are getting way too comfortable killing the spirit and hearts of the people who they asked to come alongside to help. This man brought a church back from ashes. Now, again, I don't know if that is the case. Different reports are going on saying that, yes, the church was in decline and there's been a new surge of life brought to the church. Others are saying, no, that is not true. The church was already strong and vibrant. And yes, he did add to what was already strong and vibrant. Okay. Just like Greater Mount Moriah did to A. Sam Bigham in Newark, New Jersey. I don't know who that was, but she's making reference. That man got sick and they voted him out unknowingly. I won't even start on the church I went to because the executive board is going to be the death of many churches. They beg for help. They get young people who are dedicated to God authentically. They use them and then expect silence from them and no questions about decisions made. I remember once I was even, people even got mad at me for creating Sunday school lessons directly from the Bible. So again, this is a layperson who is saying, hey, I'm looking at what's happening and this is not healthy. This goes back to what I was talking about earlier about when something like this happens at the highest level, you can begin to erode people's trust in your processes, trust in your institution, trust in your um your protocols, because I'm not going to say doctrine, but trust in your protocols. Candace Benbow, which is a author of, I think I have her book. Yes, I do. It's called Red Lip Theology. I'm actually looking at it. She writes, Joel Tudman is one of the best in his class of preachers and pastors. He's especially kind and empathetic, and the way he preaches makes practical living possible for many. I don't know what happened at the Faith Center, but getting an email that your pastor is not your pastor anymore is wild. Praying for him, his family, and the congregation, because even if the church was founded independently with no denominational oversight, everyone deserved better than that. And let's see, I have one more. Lewis C. Wembley writes, I don't know Bishop Fernandez or any details, but I am hurt for the Tudman family. I will never speak ill of a leader whose shoes I've never stood in and whose seat I have never sat in. I watched the video and I noticed Bishop covered himself and his tenure and asked for the trust of the congregation, but he did not cover Pastor Tudman in his remarks. He did not say, no sin was involved in our decision. He is faithful to his wife. His children speak well. He has no integrity issue that led to our decision. This is a choice. This paints a picture. I know I should not say this publicly. However, due to the cultural climate we are in today, the body needs to know who to trust, who's holy and who's not, who's clean and who's not, who is integral and who's not. You may disagree, but you need to cover the person in their transition if they have done no harm. And I think I would agree with Mr. Wembley there. All right. So that is that. It has taken up all of my time. And so we aren't going to get to book reading today. We're going to open it up for the talk back with Pastor Ben. And so I hope those comments gave a wider or a broader perspective of why it's necessary when you are handling something like a church conflict, you're handling something like leadership issues, passing the baton, that you don't want to just think about the mechanics of your institution. You don't want to just think about the mechanics of church, but you want to think about the people who follow you, the people who are committed to giving to your ministry, right? The people who have walked with the new leadership that you installed, that you publicly endorsed. You know, the installation service is up online. It was a public installation service. People are noticing, you know, that this person is now being scrubbed from some of the social media. Some of the posts are missing. Some of the video teachings are missing. Um, I think sometimes that can be problematic because this person was a part of your growth. This person was a person who, as has been said through data, increased your membership. So when you erase that person and their videos and their teachings, you're also erasing the people who came through that person to your ministry. And so I hope that that is something that the leadership will take into consideration there. But as I said, my main thing is, how does this touch beyond that initial congregation? It's causing people to think or to reconsider placing their trust in the institution. Now, if you've been with me any amount of time, I say this repeatedly. In 2012, I received a word from God. I wrote it out very detailed, put it into article form, and it's called Resetting the Stones. And it was a word from the Lord that said that what we see now, which was back in 2012, we're going to see it begin to crumble. And he said specifically, the institution is what will crumble, but the people will be preserved. The ecclesia will be preserved. And the more that time continues to go on, the more I understand that word, the more it keeps unfolding about the changes that need to happen in institution, because it has become a ground for trauma for a lot of people. And we're only talking about one small aspect. We haven't talked about the abuses that happen in institutional spaces. That'll probably be for another day and another time. But this one, this one hits a little bit differently for people because, um, as some people like to say, it was a bloodless separation. It was a separation and is a separation that has left people with lots of questions, with more questions than they have answers. And so, my hope is that both of these men, both of these leaders will come together and have a sit down conversation about why this transition is being reneged on and what is next for the both of them and what is next for the people that they have both been leading. I think that would bring some hopeful healing to the people who feel like their foundation, their ground when it comes to human leadership has been shaken. I don't think that that's asking for too much. All right. Pastor Ben, I'm going to send you the addition link So give me one moment here. All right, and I have sent that link. Next week, hopefully, we will be back in these two books: Live Nourished, Make Peace with Food, Banish Body Shame, and Reclaim Joy. And we'll be back with our finance talk. Right now, we are talking about savings, moving beyond broke. So that's what we will pick up on next Friday. All right. So hopefully he's got that link and we can add you in. Pastor Ben is down in the Broward County, Fort Lauderdale area. And so I want him to come as well to speak on the spiritual climate there and share his insights and thoughts on spiritual leadership. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Um,
Um,
I'm going to start
I'm
here.
going to start here.
I remember
I
when Bishop
remember when
Fernandez
Bishop
first
Fernandez
started out.
first started out.
Okay.
My
My
sister
sister actually,
she knew his
she knew
wife,
his wife,
and she
and
helped
she
him with
helped
the
him with the
praise
praise
team,
team,
until
until
he
he
got
got
up.
up. And
And
they
they
were
were
having
having
service.
service.
If
If
anybody know the
anybody know the
Lauderhill
Lauderhill
area,
area,
Fort Lauderdale Lauderhill
Lauderdale
area,
area,
they're
they're
right
right
near the
near the
Lauderhill
Lauderhill
Mall,
Mall,
across
across
on
on
16th.
16th.
Okay.
There was a
There was a
building there. So I
building
think
there.
it's
So
a
I think it's
school
a
now,
school now,
but they
but they
started in that
started in that
building.
building.
And I think
And
they
I think they
transferred from there
transferred
to
from
the
there to the
Sunrise
Sunrise
Music
Music
Theater.
Theater.
Okay.
They bought
They
that.
bought that.
So
So
do I know him
do I know him
personally?
personally?
No, I've
No,
met him a
I've
few
met him a few
times,
times,
but I don't
but
know
I
him
don't know
personally.
him
My
personally.
sister
My
does.
sister does.
But let's
But
deal with
let's
this
deal with this
situation.
situation.
Mm-hmm.
Me
Me
personally, I think it
personally, I
was
think it
handled
was
wrong.
handled wrong.
There was a
There was
lie
a lie
told here.
told here.
Okay.
Either
Either
God said
God
to
said to
install him
install him,
or he
or he
didn't.
didn't.
That's what I
That's
see.
what I see.
Now, if
Now,
God
if
didn't say
God didn't
do it
say do it,
and you did
and
it,
you
that's
did
on
it,
you.
that's on you.
Mm-hmm.
If
If
do it and
you
you
decided,
decided,
no,
no,
well,
well, I don't want
I don't
this,
want this, then that's
then
on
that's
you.
on you.
Now,
Now,
if
if
he
he
did
did
something
something
himself,
himself, immoral
immoral
or
or
otherwise,
otherwise,
and
and
that
that
warranted
warranted
this,
this,
Mm-hmm.
then
then
that's
that's
on
on
him.
him.
But
But
that
that
should
should
somehow,
somehow,
as you
as you
said,
said,
don't leave
don't leave
people
people
hanging.
hanging.
Don't leave
Don't leave
people. You
people.
can say, well, there
Well,
was
there
a.
was a.
You don't have
You
to
don't
say he
have to say
did
he did
something
something
immoral.
immoral.
You could
You
say
could
there
say
was a
there was a
judgment issue
judgment issue
Mm-hmm.
concerning him,
concerning him,
and just leave.
and just leave.
Uh-oh. I think your sound went out.
Can you hear
Can
me?
you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Last
Okay.
No,
last
somebody
No,
was
thing I
somebody
calling
was
me on
calling
this
me on
line.
this line.
okay.
But
But
But I do want to say with that, if there was a judgment issue or if there was a moral failing, right?
hmm
One thing that people fail to understand, if it has to do with abuse of any kind, spiritual leaders are considered mandatory reporters. So if
hmm
abuse is involved, it's not an issue of where of you just don't talk about it and you send that person on to be abusive in another space. You as a leader are a mandatory reporter. You are supposed to report when there is criminal activity that may have occurred with the moral failing. Um, this is what's his name? Brian Houston. Can you hear me? Hopefully he'll come back. This is what Brian Houston of what's the church? It used to be huge, huge, huge ministry all over Australia, United States. Gosh, I can't even think of the name of the ministry right now. But they were huge, right? They were a huge praise and worship kind of ministry. They built their gatherings off of their music ministry. Hillsong. Thank you. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Um, this is what Pastor Brian Houston got in trouble with the law because he knew his father had done something criminal to young people and he did not report it at the time that he knew and he had to go to court and be called in for it. Now I don't remember what the final ruling was, but we are mandatory reporters. We cannot just simply say um, this person did something and we'll just let them go to somebody else's ministry and keep people in the dark. That is a violation of your own congregation. And so if there is something that's a moral failing that is of a criminal nature, that needs to be disclosed.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we don't know yet because both of them have chosen to be silent about what the issue was. But again, what happens when you stay silent is people fill in the blanks. And I can tell you now,
Mm-hmm.
that's already a red flag for leaders. So even if he were to go somewhere else, that's a red flag because I don't know why you left. Your leader is not saying why you left. So how can I entrust you with my congregation? Because you may do the same thing here. You may be uncommitted to communication and transparency and accountability. So even if he wants to go somewhere else rather than starting his own ministry, which I believe he had done back in Oklahoma, you're still leaving a question mark hanging over someone's head.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, even though this is happening on a I would say a broad national story stage, this kind of handling of situations happens way too often in the church context. And I can only speak to the church context because I have not been a part of any other religious organization. But in the church context, this is more common than it is not.
Mm-hmm.
Leaders disappear. Somebody comes and says so and so is no longer with us. We're not going to talk about it. We're just going to move on and shout over it. And you are, as the doctor said, you're bypassing the trauma that you all are inducing when you do not properly address and respond to a situation.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Well,
Well,
what you
what
just
you
said,
just said,
that's the
that's the
institution,
institution,
the
the
religious
religious
institution.
institution.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the
Because in the
religious
religious
institution,
institution,
I am the
I am the
leader.
leader.
I don't even
I
have
don't
to
even have to
explain
explain
anything.
anything.
It just
It
is
just is
because I
because I
say.
say.
And
And they don't,
they skip
they
over the
skip over the
trauma.
trauma.
They skip
They skip
over
over
what the
what the
person may
person may
feel,
feel,
and
and
people
people
go along
go
with that.
along with that.
That's
I'll
not a
tell
That's
good
you.
not a
thing.
good thing.
I'll tell you an incident that happened. Um, Not with myself. My incident was not what we're seeing here, but someone I knew. Um, he and his family, his wife and two kids at the time, they left from the Virginia region. They got an offer to come and be youth ministers at a ministry in Florida. They packed up. They had a going away, wish you well kind of party, right? They left a ministry that they had been at, I guess, for years, maybe 5, 6 years, to go and take this new assignment. And they got to South Florida and they were given the runaround. They were given the runaround at first about their housing. Then they were given the runaround about the position. And then they were, told, well, you can live with this family while we get things situated and settled, right? Time went on, time drug on, months go by. He's working for this ministry. His family is living with another family that has like taken them in, and they never resolve their housing. As a matter of fact, they wind up not really resolving his compensation and sort of basically saying, well, this is what it is. And almost like we've got you here now, and we don't have to treat you in an ethical or fair way. This was done by a ministry. Now, I will tell you that that totally shattered that young man's confidence and faith in the institution. I will tell you now he is no longer married. He is co parenting, but he is no longer married. He is not in ministry in a formal way anymore. And he has gone to a same gender loving relationship. So it completely upended the things that he thought he knew about faith, about family, about relationships. Like everything is upended. And I look back at his life and I say, what, where was the pinpoint that the person that I knew no longer exists in the context of anything? And it pinpoints back to that. It pinpoints back to that moment where a ministry decided to abuse his trust and that of his family because they were relying on him, depending on him to lead. And so you've left him without financial ability, without housing, who's taking care of wife and two kids, was a stay-at-home mom. You upended that person's whole life, and you cared nothing about the circumstances under which you left them. Now they wound up returning and coming back to Virginia, but their lives were never the same. Their
Mm.
lives were never the same. And so it does concern me what has occurred, because as I said, it's one thing if this would have been, a private stream, a gathering of your congregation. We're working this out, and as a congregation, we're going to work through this. But no, you wanted to stream this publicly. And I don't think that this person understood the implications of what they were doing beyond their congregation. I don't think they understood it. And I think that a lot of people are surprised by how much backlash that person is getting. But this is 2025. And when you stream publicly, right? Even with us streaming publicly here, some I might get a whole flood of Bishop Hernandez fan club that comes into the comments, right? But I feel like we're being fair to both sides of this. It's a difficult thing as a leader, but when we make a mistake or we say, I missed it, I didn't get the full picture, I didn't hear completely, I jumped the gun. I heard a statement, and maybe I needed to listen a little bit longer to see what the specifics were. If I heard
Mm-hmm.
that God said this, maybe I should have let it cook for a little bit longer to understand, okay, this person is the person, but what are they the person for?
Mm-hmm.
Are they meant to take over permanently? Are they meant to revive parts of my ministry? Are they meant to take over in a temporary capacity? Like, it's okay as a leader to say, I missed it. It really is. It's okay as a leader to say, I should have taken more time with what I heard. I apologize. I know I disappointed some people. I let some people down. Um, but to not say anything, or to
And
just
that's the
say,
problem.
just trust me, that
Hmm.
that's problematic.
Yeah, that's a problem. Too
And
many
also,
leaders
Too many
don't take
leaders don't take
accountability.
accountability.
and the last piece I forgot to mention, also, this this pastor had a spiritual father in Bishop Jakes. Um, but also went and listened to some of his teachings about him feeling like he needed fathering and guidance. And so when someone comes along and says, I see you like a son, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're playing into that particular area of your heart. When someone sits you down and says, I prayed about it and I sought God and I knew you were the person, and I know that, you're going to take this on and you're going to lead us on. You're playing into the psyche of that person. And so that's why I believe that both men, if both men came together, sat down, and just like they had that conversation about him feeling like he was the one or being picked, they need to come back and sit down and have a conversation about what happened, why he will not be with
Hmm.
them any longer. If he wishes him well, that needs to be stated. And the people that they serve need closure.
Mm-hmm.
And the longer they take to provide closure, the more difficult this is going to be. People may not come outright and say it, but they will certainly express it by their presence or absence at your next service.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because one thing about the black church tradition, we're going to show you better than we could tell you. When
Mm-hmm.
you leave people out of the decision making process while still taking their money, it's just like I'm just gonna keep taking from you, but I'm not gonna give you the accountability that you deserve as I'm taking from you.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Um, there are a lot of people who are not going to be, they're not going to accept that. So I hope in all this, I really do hope in all this that they will come together and provide some more clarity for the people that they directly serve. And um, I see some bishops and some pastors saying, well, this is none of y'all business. This is between him and the congregation. I'm like, um, the
When he
When he
live
toe,
live
stream,
stream.
the toe is connected to the foot.
mm-hmm.
The ear is connected to the head. And I know a little something about that because I, for the past week, have not been able to hear clearly out of my right ear. And just yesterday, I was finally able to hear clearly out of my right ear. And I realized because I couldn't hear out of my right ear, I had to adjust things. I had to keep leaning forward. I had to keep saying, my mouth had to begin to help the ear. Huh? I can't hear you. You see, my neck had to get involved because I had to stretch my neck out. Then my other ear had to get involved because I had to lean in so I can hear a little bit better, right? In other words, other parts of my body had to get involved because one part was experiencing a deficiency. And so we are the body of believers. And when one part is experiencing a deficiency, you don't tell the rest of the body it ain't our business.
Right. but
but
listen,
but listen,
he also made it
he also
everybody's
made it
business when you
everybody's
live
business
stream.
when he live streamed.
Correct. No, he not only made it the body's business, he not only made it the universal church's business,
Everybody's.
he
Everybody's.
made it the world's business.
Hmm.
Hmm.
That's what happened. And so leaders, both secular and Christian, are weighing in. And,
Hmm.
I think we can, like I said, I think we can all learn from this moment. Um, how we handle people matters. How we handle people as leaders matters. How we handle the people that entrust us to lead them matters. That's what I take away from all of this. There's always a lesson to be learned. Final thoughts.
You
You
said
said
something
something
very
very
important.
important.
We're the
We're the
body.
body.
We're the
We're the
body.
body. If one part of the body is deficient, it hurts the whole. It affects the whole body, and that's what this situation is. It
Mm-hmm.
affects the whole body.
Mm-hmm.
The people that lie on God, it affects the whole body because people start saying, "Well, you can't trust them Christians."
Mm-hmm.
See, they don't say you can't trust that preacher.
Correct.
They say you can't
Absolutely.
trust them. Yeah. So it affects the whole body.
We
So
have
we
to
have to
remember that.
remember that.
You know,
You know,
uh,
uh,
do our
do our
part.
part.
Hold up
Hold
to
up to
our
our
part
part
of
Mm-hmm.
being
of
the
being the
body.
body.
Just like the
Just like
feet
the
have to
feet
be the
have to be the
feet,
feet,
the
Mm-hmm.
ankle
the
have to
ankle
be
have
the
to be the
ankle,
ankle,
the
Mm-hmm.
leg
the
has to be
leg
the
has to be the
leg,
leg,
knee have to
knee
be the
have to be
leg.
the leg. I mean,
Knee have to
knee
be the
have to be
knee,
the knee,
and on up
and
the
on up the
body.
body.
See, there are very
There
few
are very
people
few
that can
people
actually
that can
walk on
actually
their
walk on their
hands.
hands.
Listen.
You know,
You know,
so
And do it for a long time either.
right.
right.
Because just because you can doesn't mean
Hmm.
you built for that.
Yeah, do it all
Do it
That'll
day.
all day.
that'll preach. Just because you can doesn't mean you're built for that.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And you might can do it for a few seconds. But that if that ain't your ministry, um, you gonna feel it. And you're gonna
Hmm.
know
Hmm.
that this is not so supposed to be long term. And like you said, it becomes a reflection on all of us. It becomes a reflection on all of us. And I do want to say that when injury happens in the body runs to address the spot, to heal it. I can't think of any, I can't, the body's natural response is to protect itself.
Hmm.
Hmm.
The body's natural response is to protect itself. So anytime I see someone's natural response is um,
Oh, you got an earache? Well, let's grab a knife and cut the ear off. You're not a part of the body.
Mm-mm.
Why? Because that's not the body's natural response. First, that which is natural, then that which is spiritual. The body's natural response is to immediately begin to repair itself. You scratch your cornea, that cornea repairs itself within 24 hours. So when you're wondering who's a part of the body and who's not a part of the body, I want you to look at people's response to wounds in the body and see if they are running to rip it apart or if they are running to repair.
Hmm.
That will tell you a lot. All right. This has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host today, Shantae Charles. I want to thank you for your time and for your attention. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness. So continue to go out and be what?
Light.
Light. Take care, everyone. Be well. And most importantly, be light.